wetlands or other structures of storage across the landscape. When you lose that storage, you tend to see these effects, more and bigger flooding events. Change stream morphology, the actual shape of stream channels will change because of the increased runoff coming off of the land. Those streams were designed over millions of years to carry a certain amount of water. We change the volume of water flowing in that stream, and the stream will change to fit, to suit that new volume of water. Of course, that change means that it erodes its banks, it pulls in that sediment, and it carries that sediment downstream to deposit in whatever's down there, a lake, most likely. So we see increased erosion, increased turbidity of the water. We also get this flushing of the landscape. Things that used to be, that were on the land that would oftentimes get caught in those wetlands or those other storage structures, now just get carried off with that water right into the stream or right into the lake. Whether it's nutrients, fecal coliform, other bacteria, other contaminants, herbicides or pesticides, fertilizers. We also see temperature impacts again too. That water rushing off the land right into our streams. It used to get caught and infiltrated into the ground. It's now rushing into our streams. And lastly, impervious surfaces. Of course, they do a number of things as well. Obviously, they inhibit the recharge of groundwater. Water can't get through it, so it's not going to get back into the ground. It prevents that natural processing of pollutants that can happen when that water does get in contact with soil and can infiltrate into the ground, so you lose that ability as well. It also provides a surface for the accumulation of pollutants, whether it's oil or grease that drips out of our car, or litter, or dirt, road salt, whatever it might be. It's a surface where that stuff can accumulate. Then, of course, when the rainfalls come, you can see a lot of that stuff washed off the street, right into our storm sewers, right into a ditch, right into a stream, right into a lake. All right. This is a slide that many of you may have seen before. It's been around for quite a while. This is data from the Wisconsin DNR looking at runoff volume, phosphorus, and sediment inputs from different types of developed shorelines. So we have undeveloped, we looked at a bunch of undeveloped shoreline, a bunch of sort of lowly, lesser developed shoreline, old style cabin, and then more like residentially developed shoreline, and compared runoff, phosphorus, and sediment. So you can see for these areas represent sort of the background concentration coming off an undeveloped shoreline. With lower levels of development, you see little change in flow, little change in phosphorus, and about 4 times more sediment coming off of that kind of developed landscape. When you get to the more heavily developed landscape, the changes are much more dramatic. Big changes in the amount of water coming off the landscape. And as we talked about, that water's carrying things. It's carrying phosphorus and it's carrying sediment. So you see those numbers go up pretty dramatically as well. This is some other data from the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency. And these are 4 watersheds on the North Shore flowing into Lake Superior. French River and Sucker River are close to Duluth. Poplar River is, the mouth of the Poplar River is where the Lutsen Ski Resort is, so it's up by Lutsen. And the Brule River is up past, it flows into Lake Superior past Grand Marais. If you drive up to Gunflint, after you get up and over hill past Grand Marais ways, you drive across the Brule River. The Brule River has really had little change since the 1970s as far as land use goes. In the Poplar River and the Sucker and the French, they've seen steady growth of developed landscape in those watersheds. In the Poplar River, it's really concentrated down near the mouth where the ski resort is. There's a golf course there, a number of condominiums, a fairly concentrated amount of development very close to the mouth of that river. And so these arrows now are showing the volume of sediment, the amount of sediment coming off in the 1970s, and my slide got cut off, but it's data from 2001 or 2. Where they monitored these same streams again. They had been monitored in the 1970s, and they went back and reevaluated these streams in the early 2000s to see if they had changed or how much they had changed. So as far as sediment goes, French River, the sediment increased 310%, the Sucker River increased 120%, and the Poplar River increased 210%. So 210% more sediment coming out of the Poplar River in 2002 or 1, I wish I could remember that date, versus the 1970s. Brule River didn't change. It stayed about the same. So we're seeing the effects. And we can't pinpoint exactly what this is from. We don't know exactly what's happening in 2007. But we do know the one difference between these watersheds is the amount of land use change. And of course, when we have development, it usually means that we increase the amount of impervious surface, we reduce the amount of forest cover, and we reduce the amount of water storage that we have available, leading to those effects that we've talked about before in some of the previous slides. And I do say usually because there's ways that development can be done that really minimizes these things. And one of those ways we're going to talk more about today. And I think one of the important things for us to remember as we go through these discussions is that the quality of our water in our streams and our lakes isn't really a whole lot more than a reflection of how we use the land. Our water quality is determined by what happens in the watershed, and we're the dominant players on defining what happens in the watersheds across our landscape, across our state. I'm involved with a program called NEMO. It stands for Non-Point Education for Municipal Officials. And through that program, we help to educate and to train and provide resources to local governments to help them make better land use decisions in Minnesota. There's programs around that. And we sort of recommend a three-tiered approach to protecting water quality. The first one, planning, land use tools, enforcement, trying to set the stage for how development occurs in your community, in your watershed, wherever you might be. The second one is site design and low-impact development, or in other words, how developments are situated on the landscape. So first, setting the stage by where do we want development, where do we don't want development, where do we not want development. Second is, we're going to have development here, how should it go on the landscape to best protect our resources, to best suit our goals as a community. And the third piece then is the best management practices and the maintenance, such as the rain gardens and the buffer strips that Eleanor talked about before. And this is basically what happens on the ground at the site. You already got something there, how can you make it better? With conservation design, we're really talking about site design and low-impact development piece of this. But of course, it gets back to the land use tools and the planning and ordinances and other things. That's how it gets implemented by a community. But it's really a site design process. All right, so that brings us to the game. Any questions quick, just on the stuff that I've talked about now? We're going to sort of shift gears a little bit and work on those maps that we have around the room. So any questions so far on the upfront pieces? No. All right, good. So instructions are up here. I want you to find a map, divide yourself into groups, cluster yourselves around the map, and then within your group, I want you to elect one city councilor. That councilor is going to evaluate how well you achieve your community's goals when you're developing the land on those maps. All right? So it's a pretty important role. Pick somebody you like, or you don't like, I guess, depending on your view of things. All right? There's 3 maps, 2 on this side, 2 on your left, and 1 on your right. All right, does everybody have their counselors chosen? Counselors, raise your hand.
You're it.
That's a good elected. All right, counselor? Right here, right there, all right.
I'd like to be executive positions.
See, I'll explain how this works in a couple of moments. All right, and you guys, your counselor is? All right, and I'll explain how that works in a moment. So, I'm going to flip slides here and we'll take a little bit of a look at this map that we have, and then I'll explain more about what